Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the WCS Americas broadcast. We're going to be moving into WCS's Winter's Losers Bracket for Group E. My name is Fear Dragon. I am joined here by Zombie Grub. And we got another Protoss versus Terran. How are you feeling about this Americas match? This is actually the American match.
It is actually an American match. Well, TVP is just such a glorious matchup.
It's quite beautiful right now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, I know that DisK did play his series earlier on, and to be entirely honest, he wasn't really looking to be in super good form, wasn't really looking that great. Do you feel, how are you feeling about like favoritism on these players or anything like that?
It is, I feel like they should be mixing it up, you know, both of them, but taking into consideration each of their matchups, I feel like Future would come out ahead, but then we were talking about it behind the scenes, that DisK might just be like kind of shaking off the nerves, you know, maybe played a little sloppier than usual in the macro game, because Future was facing, I think, what you know, Nate kept praising as like that really optimal Protoss play, and DisK was not playing the optimal Protoss play. Well, it was a really hard sentence to get through. Anyways, so I think Future playing against unoptimal Protoss play is going to win. There we go, I nailed it.
Okay. Well, there we go. Now, of course, ladies and gentlemen, if you are interested, we do also have the war chest available, so you can support awesome players like this. One of the awesome skins available here is the robotics facility skin.
Meow.
And really what I'm just waiting for is eventually we'll get the War Prism skin that looks like a rowboat, because then it would be a rowboat.
A rowboat?
Tried too hard on that one.
I think you did.
We are nearly getting ready to jump into our our next game. It's going to be on Kairos Junction between these two guys. I pretty much agree with your assessment. I think that Future is probably still pretty favored in this, and DisK is also. The funny thing about DisK is that for most of the North American players in this scene, the people who play against DisK on the ladder or they practice with them, they all have really positive things to say about DisK. But when it comes to tournaments, this guy really has trouble showing up. He just doesn't really have the right mentality for it. Future used to kind of have that problem as well, but he has definitely come around and been looking a lot better. So we'll see if these guys can kind of overcome their mental blocks, show some good games. So we start up here in the top left-hand corner of the map, top of the red Protoss player. He is Psystorm Gaming's DisK.
In the bottom right, as the blue Terran for Infinity Gaming, it is Future. Yeah, that mentality issue is going to be pretty big, and feels like DisK, you know, is really eager to go in the lobby. I feel like
he was.
I don't know. Yeah, either he's excited to shake off the first series, or he's antsy. Yeah.
So I know that DisK, he was talking to me and he was saying Time was the one. He had no idea how Time played. He was probably the most concerned about that match over anyone else in their group, because he has experience versus Future. He has experience versus Probe. He knows how those guys play. The Chinese players, oftentimes they can kind of feel segmented off from a lot of the foreigners or the non-Koreans, and it's difficult for a lot of the non-Koreans to actually get a read on the Chinese scene or the Taiwanese scene. So
yeah, I can imagine. Even if you know, we kind of briefly went over it, you know, on the commentary desk, you know, like, you know, they seem to mostly replicate the Korean Terrans. If Time would do that, it's still always a twist to it, and there's always that, you know, that they're not going to have the absolute perfect play that maybe Innovation is setting through, right? So it can be certainly different. Maybe that means he's going to go in a losers match feeling okay. He did recently defeat Future in late December, something like that. So he might be feeling very comfortable at the very least, and that state of mind could work out well. But again, if he plays the same style, maybe he's just thinking like, you know, I won't make up many macro mistakes, but it's the same style of play, then I feel like Future is going to have a stronger shot. I think Future, you know, got a little outclassed in that first series for him versus Probe. Not that he couldn't bring it back if they played again, but like a little outclassed there. But I feel like if it is just the same, you take, you know, each part of those two series and you put them together like we see here, then I think Future would win. It should be a close one.
Okay, well, it managed to avoid the Reaper for a little bit, or sorry, the Marine for a little bit, as it was going out trying to find the Probe. Probe comes back in, harasses the SCV, but gets cleaned up, doesn't get any kills or anything. I think the probe did make its way up to the top of the ramp, though, and should have seen the reactor finishing up on that barracks. No, actually, just saw the barracks there. Didn't actually see the reactor.
Yeah, a little bit late. Yeah, Future, you know, not going for that Reaper Scout or CV Scout. Is a little in the dark, but it might go back to, you know, how they know how each other plays.
Yep.
So he is going to be able to get away with it. It's just a adept, not being too pokey proddy. Within a sentry, a wall off. There was a Hellion drop that almost did a lot of damage. There's a proxy starport too with Hellions, so he's right on the money. There's a Hellion drop again.
Yep. That starport is also a funny position. Starport, oh my god, he's gonna end up revealing it with the Hellions chasing after the Adept, and the Adept even survives, shades into the natural. It's one hit away from death. Oh boy.
Going around the Rosie. Pockets full of dead Adept. That actually went down.
I remember that rhyme.
Yes, classic nursery rhyme. So the Hellions were revealed. The proxy starport is just, it's more of a hidden one than it is in a proxy. So, I mean, it's important to see that it is going to be a drop as opposed to just a direct attack. But the direct attack, yeah, exactly what DisK was preparing for. And now with the wall, he could just put any units he does have up in the main base and make sure not to take any damage unless there's a clever bamboozling where he gets drops in the natural.
Leaves a probe there.
Oh god.
It's the wall. I think he need to let the units back into the main base from the outside. But you end up seeing the medevac having a hard time finding an angle, so he's going to end up backing off for now. And this was something that you want to get something done with. Obviously, we saw Future in that last game versus Probe just drop a reactor in the middle of the map and start producing units. But a lot of the time, you do want to actually have that at home because you eventually do want to actually have safe production. But whoa, the Hellions getting some damage done. Not okay. Only 3 workers killed though.
Yeah, that force field was pretty clutch. It really perfectly messed up 2 of the Hellions from firing. You need at least 3, so that was okay. But then going into the natural, even though there's a ton of stalkers, it's just about chasing the actual Hellions down. The medevac probably should have been able to escape, and that would have made 6 probes like okay-ish, but losing the medevac there, only 6 probes, not super great here. Liberator is going to hope for a little bit more, and if DisK is a little too eager to initiate a counter because Blink is done, it seems like such an open opportunity.
Yeah.
And those Liberators could do, could do damage, or it could be scouted. Oh, and not even go to probe.
Yeah, nice pullback there from DisK, and of course allows him time, like you said, to pull back the Stalkers so he can deal with the Liberator if he moves into the natural. In a sense, this is also a little bit of a victory there for Future because he doesn't have to worry about the Stalkers moving across the map. It allows him to build up that siege tank count, so he won't even have to worry about Stalkers blinking up into his main, sniping off Stim, in case you watched the European portion of the broadcast. That was a bit of a theme today.
Yeah. Liberator doesn't see the 3rd Nexus, but with the probe location, you know, at the location he's figured out, there it is. And he's going to be able to scout the Liberator movement, and there are still Stalkers defensively. So, yeah, it's...
Second Liberator in the top right-hand side of the main base, getting ready to move in, maybe with both of them at the same time. But he moves in with one of the Liberators, only gets 3 kills, and the other Liberator just kind of stalling.
It's like, where the heck are you even pointing? Like, it's really up there, yeah. That might have been maybe even 8 probe kills if that was combined together perfectly, but now that is going to have to be remembered later. Hopefully when DisK is not paying attention for Future's sake, which is what Future, I think, is really hoping for. You know, if the Stalker attack does happen, maybe he does take a tank loss, and that sucks, but then maybe the Liberators do a bunch of damage. But he's brought back that starport. It is going to the macro game. We have Colossus now on the way. DisK, once again, only with 1 Forge.
Yeah.
For now.
Just 1 Forge for now, and the kind of interesting thing here is that the Stalkers, they do have an opportunity to get maybe something done here. There's really only the 1 siege tank on the high ground and the 1 siege tank on the low ground. There really aren't that many Marines. Most of them are sitting in the main base right now, but it's a bit of a dangerous move in here. And of course, if you only have the Stalkers, you don't have the rest of your army, you don't have Colossus out yet, you don't have Charge. I do understand pulling it back.
I didn't realize how much Future was getting ahead in the economy. I mean, he's transferring SCVs now, whereas DisK obviously is reducing probes with his 3rd Nexus, but he got up quite a bit, despite not dealing a lot of direct probe damage. Should be feeling okay economy-wise, and even taking an okay trade here with the tanks coming forward. DisK will have to skedaddle.
Yeah, DisK, I mean, he's losing a little bit of time. It finally does start up that +1 weapons upgrade. I was going to say, the Forge finished up a while ago, and this is kind of going back to what you're saying. It feels like Future's getting ahead in a lot of regards. He has his 1-1 on the way and nearly finished up before +1 starts up for DisK. Sure, the fast Colossus are nice, but 3rd base for Future. finishes up really, really ahead of time and allows him that SCV production.
It's not even like that was that fast to the Colossus, you know? It wasn't like a 2-base Colossus into a slower third where it's like, you know, but he has 2 Colossus now. No, it was actually, I want to say like a decently timed third Nexus, yet he still falls behind in Workers. It was a little delayed as well from the Liberator, and now he's only on, well, he's about to be on 2 Colossus, but most importantly, Future is not ready to move out posture. So while there is a you know, nasty spot here, for instance, around the third, it seems they're going to be waiting a little while longer for some real action, in which case, you know, maybe a third Colossus pops out. Perhaps we also have Charge started or a second Forge. None so far, but there is that third Colossus started. And DisK should be controlling the map as much as possible with the Stalkers if given the opportunity. He also is, yeah, getting his vision denied. Nice missile turret placement, so he can't ever be quite sure if Future's going for a drop, going for direct attack, both, right? I think that Liberator came in and...
Yeah, only 3 workers killed. Forces and delayed mining as well. Kind of interesting that we still don't have Charge ever being researched here for DisK.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't mind that it's a, you know, later, but it is going to eventually have to come into play. We'll see how he handles this. He did break down the rocks, but the tanks siege up in a decent amount of time, and oh, the Stalkers are all types of bulked up, but one tank on siege, this tank not really helping until the very end. And just a morass Marine army otherwise means they have to run away from the Colossus.
Yeah, it was a little bit unfortunate because, like you were saying, the siege tanks were getting a lot of good damage done. Oh, picks off the Medevac and the siege tank with 1 blow. But it's tough because the Marines, they cannot really easily fight versus the Colossus, especially one step forward, and look, the Marines just disappear.
Yeah, Future, I mean, I feel like, all right, so...
It's one of those games also, I just want to note, where unfortunately the Terran player tops out and they're only 5 supply behind, but they were really dead.
Yeah, he was. He's going to lose his Marine Ball, and then his tank count's going to take a long time to get back up, if it even does.
Yeah.
But there's, yeah, I feel like if that was a situation where DisK had not broken down the rocks at that timing, had not been as confident as he was, and the tanks do siege up, that is a really strong game even. For a Terran player who was doing kind of like a new, maybe not as usual style where you go into double factory production, eventually triple is probably his plan with mass Marines, and if you get enough tanks, you can focus fire down the Stalkers, the Colossus, basically anything, and pros are like, wait, no, but tanks aren't a thing, not that many.
Yeah, you also need to get the siege tank siege up before the engagement,
yeah,
not during it also.
That's the important thing though.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you don't do that, the pros are like, siege tanks, whatever.
Yeah, a bit tough there, and just losing the game like that in such an instantaneous kind of moment, it really, really does sting there for Future, especially since he had good upgrades, he had a lot of things were going his way, he had a better economy,
Yes.
etc.
Yes, like, I actually think that was a very strong push. If it was it just sieged up a little bit, not like even faster, yes, but also more cohesively, right?
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
a couple tanks that just weren't or were out of position. So that could have been 2 extra tank shots on all those Stalkers. There's like 10 dead Stalkers.
Yeah.
If that happens.
Well, that's how splash damage works.
That's exactly. That's how we learned StarCraft.
Okay, well, going into game number 2, again, this is an elimination match in the lower bracket, so that means that the loser of this match is going to get knocked out of WCS Winter. A lot on the line for both these players, as both of them, kind of the younger players, trying to come up in the scene, still looking to make a name for themselves. Future, I think, has made a name for himself in North America, but in reality, I think that he has struggled to get those results when it comes to WCS specifically. He's won Cheesadelphia over some really great players. He's done well in a lot of online tournaments, but in WCS, it hasn't really been shown just yet.
Yeah, well, WCS is truly that next step, especially with the Americas being such a broad umbrella term. So you do have to face, you know, the likes of Time and Probe, who we lost to. But DisK is someone that Future should be able to take on. Ditto for DisK. If it's a 2-0, then I guess that's just today's theme.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do about that?
Okay, well, we'll see if the 2-0 curse remains true to the very end, or if we'll have a little bit of a change up there as we move into game number 2 on Port Alexander. I feel like we're only seeing 2 maps today.
Yeah, not nearly as many year zeros as like last week. Okay.
The 2-0s are not helping the only seeing 2 maps as well.
That is a strong point there. But Port Alexander it is once again for game number 2 in the bottom right. As the blue Protoss for Psystorm, he is DisK.
I like that note. Played Terran before Protoss. Did have a bit of a ramp-up time. I think that time has passed, but he's spawning up here at the top left-hand corner of the map. We have the red Terran player. He is Future.
You know, like, I'm a little disappointed, right? Because I didn't quite catch that he was double producing tanks until, you know, he was doing the push.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, he's doing that style. But now that I know that he's capable of doing that, so that he might do it again. It is a different style to play. You know, it's not that 2-base early tank push, micro base. No, it's actually, you can play that style almost as if you're the Protoss. You know, you're the one that's like, you come to me, and then if you don't, or you don't go like right at 10 or something like that, then I'm gonna get like 15 tanks, bio that is hopefully spread, which was a problem last game. And even if you have Colossus or High Templars, I just, focus fire correctly. And it's a very different type of fight that Protoss aren't usually, used to, and it can work out.
Would you have preferred that he didn't make that push out at that time?
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was going to get into. It's just like, you see Thermal do it. He like maybe does a tank push early on because, what Terran doesn't. But then he kind of turtles back a little bit, goes for a couple drops, and then mostly just builds up the tank count and then does like a 2-2 push, I believe. Which, it's always a very common timing. So, yeah, but then, again, like, you can't really blame Future for doing that push. It's Kairos Junction for last map, which is that strong point. And then if, again, all those things had worked out perfectly, it would have been a fine push.
Yeah, that positioning, if you are there and the rocks haven't been knocked down and the siege tanks get in behind the rocks, and a lot of the time, that's the other thing, most Protoss players will be saying, okay, yeah, I'm getting at my charge lot follow-up to try and support the big Colossus Blink Stalker army. And we didn't actually see charge coming out at all. It was just purely Stalkers, and the rocks had been knocked down. So maybe not 100% what Future was anticipating. But okay, Reaper opening coming in on this particular map. He's going to move in, sees the Adept, get up his command center back at home safely without having to worry about an Adept, and nice Reaper grenade.
Yeah.
There's a print F
Minute
micro tip on how to properly time those Adept shade, or not the Adept shade, the Reaper grenades against the Adepts shading onto you.
I should watch that instead of
That's
trying and failing and saying, well, stupid anyways.
You know what? I would tell you how to do it right now, but I want everyone to go watch that and give Printf those video views that he deserves.
Yeah, basically every single minute micro he's done has been really cool.
They've all been great. Seriously.
I don't think I've watched one and been like, that's not helpful.
All right, we do have a pretty quick Liberator opening with another couple of Hellions making their way across the map, but no medevac this time. So this isn't going to be the Hellion drop, but it still could just run in at the same time as the Liberator, try and draw all the units out of position. And he's doing a good job of hiding those Hellions so far as well.
Yeah, he's got 4 now that are just unable to do anything with the wall as it is, and it being... I mean, the Reaper couldn't even try to, like, get the distraction going because it's Port Alexander. So this should be defended. Unfortunately, the Hellions a bit of a waste. They should be, anyways. Oh, unless they get the sentry. Yeah, no.
Oh, okay. I think he could have shot it over the wall, but doesn't want to commit.
Yeah, his Hellions are his only map presence, and while that's not like a strong map presence versus Protoss, well, I mean, it kind of is because they can always run by.
I mean, counterpoint also is that the Hallucinating Phoenix is what he's planning to use to get continuous scouting on Future at this point, so maybe nice. It kind of goes both ways, right?
I believe that already went through, so he knew it was a 1-1-1, but I mean, what else is new? Liberator is going to enter the main base. Scouted should be defended.
DisK reacting there now.
There we go. Doesn't quite scout the Forge, or more importantly, like the tech follow-up, because it's still kind of, okay, good focus fire here.
Yeah, gets 3 workers.
Yeah, I guess he technically could have gotten that Stalker too, but yeah, right.
Takes an extra 2 hits, so I guess you have to choose between 2 probes and a Stalker, right?
It's 3 hits if you kill Stalkers.
Yeah, and that Stalker only took 1 hit.
Right, and if you used all your shots on that instead of the probes.
Oh yeah, I was saying you have to pick between 2 probes and a Stalker.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, all right.
Okay, we're in agreement.
I think we're talking about the same thing.
Cool.
It's a little differently. All right. Another Liberator harassment. Again, just keeping tabs on the Protoss without really expecting a ton of damage being done.
DisK still has all of those 3 Stalkers in his main base, though, ready to intercept that. And with Blink finished up, it makes it even easier to deal with that Liberator. He's going to be able to blink over those mineral lines. He's going to be able to blink on top of the Liberator.
Blink out.
Going to be able to.
There we go.
Okay, there we go.
Oh, but he went back in.
Nice focus fire, though, because the reason why he goes back in there is because usually it's not going to be the default target, but Future kind of free-targeting the weakened Stalker.
Yeah. Getting his third CC up, you know, just using kind of a bit of a choke to make sure he doesn't get Stalker jumped on, but that he also wasn't being attacked by Stalkers. Hellions continuing to scout their Nexus. He hasn't scouted the tech, though, still. You know, he never saw the Forge, and then he didn't see the Robotics Bay. That is a little concerning. You know, DisK is doing what he's been doing, and Future could guess that, and he'd be right. But it's also like, you know, he could be holed up in his you know, mentally picturing this moment where, like, charge lots come in, and he's maybe being more defensive than he has to. Perhaps he goes into Ghost, which should be Vikings. Again, hopefully he's guessing. He's figured out that it's Colossus again. Yeah,
it's just been adding on all the barracks, getting up all the add-ons, going into the straight-up heavy bio play with a few siege tanks added on, going up to his third now, getting up his armories so he can continue his upgrading. But yeah, he will be playing a little bit of catch-up on those upgrades. Of course, he'll be getting 2 at a time compared to just the single Forge there, so he will eventually catch up, even with some Chrono Boost. But we'll see. This does get really scary. Once +2 weapons finishes up and you have Colossus out, it is not an army a Terran player can take lightly.
Hey, DisK has had a smoother game, I guess, this time. Taking less probe kills, even though the last game wasn't a ton. We did see Future a little bit ahead in that regard. Now they're more even. So DisK gets to his Colossus count. Oh, 2 more probes go down. But he also gets into this charge, which he was holding off on much longer last game. So that'll help against any growing tank counts. I'm paying attention this time, seeing if Future's going to slap down the second factory. If he doesn't, then he should transfer over to Reactor. He's going to have to deal with the charge out somehow. And Winter Mines are usually the best way to do it.
Okay, we'll see. No siege tank production resuming right now. Factory just sitting idle. In the meanwhile, by the way, all of the gateways are coming on down for DisK. He's also getting up the Templar Archives. He's getting into the kind of default Protoss mode where you say, okay, I got a couple of my Colossus. I'm at a good place with 2 to 3. Now I can start thinking about getting up some Storm. I force out some Vikings. Maybe get out the third Colossus. And just getting into that position where the Terran player kind of has to react to all the different forms of massive splash damage Protoss is available.
Continuous scouting revealed the second factory as it was put down. We do have +1 tank attack. So if you're going to go into double tank production or maybe even triple, then yes, it makes sense to go for the ground attack as opposed to ship weapons. And we do have a majority, if not entirely, Marine Ball accompanying that. So it gets a little tricky. Whoop. And this drop not really working out.
Oh, doesn't blink aggressively. I guess it's a little bit dangerous. You're getting close to enemy territory. You don't know where the siege tanks are.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, this is... Okay, so Future is playing the similar style. If he does push out, you can basically guarantee you'll always have that Marine out in front, not being caught like he was last game. Or he could just not move out. You know, he could just actually wait a little bit more into that 2-2. Perhaps even 4th CC, you know, actually go into what looks to be a really good macro game, but on that weirder composition that is basically pure Marine tank with some medevacs.
Yeah, and not for lack of trying, but both these players, I mean, they've been teasing at trying to get some harassment done and everything, but realistically, neither one of these players have actually lost all that much this game. I think Future effectively just losing maybe some Liberators or something and some of the Hellions from earlier on.
Right.
And yeah, actually, he has just 7 workers going down, an Observer and a Stalker, and then a couple of the Hellions, Liberators, and a Reaper. So both these players, they keep teasing at each other, trying to get something, trying to find some sort of hole in the armor. But neither one of them actually finding a whole lot. And it is going to come down to that big engagement and see who has been macroing better behind all of the harassment.
Are you serious? This Marine doesn't actually see the... Well, that's going to be annoying because it is happening as Future moves out. He has 2-2-1. He actually didn't have a Marine out forward, but it doesn't end up biting him in the butt this time because DisK was out of position, didn't see the army movements, now has to deal with this choke. We saw time abuse as well. Now it's going to go for Future. DisK is going in as well as doing some harassment.
Siege Tank's finally getting some shots off on that army. The Stalkers all clumped up. The Colossus even taking some damage. The Storms are way too much. And that immediately pushes Future back. At the same time, the Zealot Warpin in the main base is going to be absolute hell to clean up.
Yeah, that's that actually might be too much. He is going to lose his position here. Regardless if he had lost all those Marines or not, his tanks would have been unsieged and thus a lot less helpful. And while he might be able to, he's allowed to retreat, I suppose. It is not a great place to be. Future slapping down everything he missed while focusing on 2 different fronts. The production, the 4th CC, maybe starts his 3-3 as well, and maybe he can hold. I mean, for as many Marines that died, he had some decent reinforcements.
A lot of his units are still in the main base. They aren't going to have time to siege up all those siege tanks inside of this third base. So he gets them up into the best position he can for now as the rest of the units start to make their way over from the main. And it looks like, yeah, DisK is going to be backing up. He doesn't really feel comfortable pushing into that.
Yeah. I mean, after looking at all those Marines die and then be basically killed, it looked very scary, but he had a large army back at home. That's why he was able to clean up the Zealots with not as much hassle as I thought. You see a war prison going to the main with that many Zealots, and you're like, oh, okay, so I guess that's it. But no, Future dealt with it, and while his macro did slip a little bit, it would have been nice. It would have been really nice, a nice game if he had his 4 CC already down and upgrades aren't in the way. It is still a game that his composition can win. I don't think DisK is particularly, like, reacting to the composition. He's, you know, he's not going for charge loss, not going for surrounds. So a choke.
DisK anticipate, yeah, he sees all the army now. I was going to say, he might be wondering why there are Marines rallying up to the top right-hand side. And the siege tanks, oh my god, they're just obliterating this army. DisK, a little bit of miscontrol. I mean, a big bit of miscontrol there.
Yes, exactly. But even if he was, I mean, I don't know if it was intentional to try to split the army, split the attention of the tanks. It's hard to when they start to get high in numbers like that. But even if he wasn't, even if he was coming in exactly like he is right now, if all the tanks are firing, which has been a little bit of a problem for Future, then as long as his bio is also spread, I think this composition from Future just works against DisK's.
Yeah, if there were more charge lots coming in from the left-hand side, maybe, but...
There's charge lots now.
And the Colossus are working away at those Marines. The Colossus staying alive as well. Oh my god, DisK is actually going to be able to push this back. He's sitting down in supply, and it's a lot of army supply that he's sitting down. Future was just rallying across the map, but this is still a hold there for DisK.
You know, Future's army is not as big as it really ever seems, as there are 12 medevacs. Now he's going into some Liberators, which will help out. And his upgrades are finally completing as they were a little bit late, so he's been up against 3 attack and 2 armor with just 2. But he still has a decent number of tanks. They have certainly been cut down to size 5. He never went into that triple factory production to really have a lot. And maybe DisK, if he can take, again, better concaves, have a bit more charge lot presence as well, maybe he can start to really tackle this face-to-face.
Oh, this drop is going to be really key, though. He might be able to force out a recall. No, the Stalkers are quick to react. They're already here, but not actually target firing down any of the medevacs so far. So some of the Stalkers are starting to go down because he's focused on the fight at the front, storming down some of these Marines, forcing Future just a little bit further back and warping in some Zealots.
A High Templar didn't get that second feedback, so 1 medevac will get out of here and continue the pressure later on. This 4th base ends up being a little bit open. Now, as far away as the tanks are, the Liberators are covering that ramp. The Nexus is a goner. The probes weren't there in the first place, I suppose.
Yeah. At least he didn't lose those.
Yeah,
Still got 70, but siege tanks sieging up the last second. DisK looking for an opportunity to jump on those. Not going to find it. The Colossus count has gone back up from 2 to 4, and that is a pretty scary number as well, since it is just purely Marines. It's Marines and siege tanks, so if those siege tanks are never actually covering the Marines, and suddenly they will just disappear to 4 Colossus.
I really wish Future could see all these observers. You know, like, that's actually, like, it's huge, right? Whenever his tanks are in siege, that is his weakest point, or if he's forced to siege them in a hurry. Again, they're not all firing at once. But the Liberator Edition is really nice here. He had, you know, as many medevacs as you really want, and then even more key positioning to abuse with those Liberators. This drop is really doing quite a bit of damage.
Getting a Robo is really nice, although not quite focus firing that down. Just going to go after the Zealots and the Stalkers. Gets one of the Forges, but there, I think, is already +3 armor finishing up. So not going to need those soon. In this fight, the siege tanks getting their shots off, but very, very late into the fight, and they are going to get cleaned up.
Yeah, once again caught with about half of his tanks on siege. Maybe a little less, but still an important number. And Marines not exactly in a concave. But these drops are like, okay, now they're seriously out of hands.
+3. Right? Wow, he actually managed to deny it. Nice.
Yeah, and he got the Robo. It was already
one of the Robos, right? There were 2? Yeah,
yes.
There's a second.
It was already good harassment, but to actually get those buildings is huge. And this is mass Marines, so this should not tackle this army.
Okay, Archons and splash damage on medevacs.
Okay, just slowly get out of there, I suppose. There's boost. I guess he just used it.
Well, now he's down to a reasonable number of medevacs.
Yeah, 7 is actually totally reasonable. But still producing those tanks. He's on 4 bases, going into a 5th now. I would have really liked to have seen a 3rd tank factory.
New factory, yeah.
Yeah, but now that's nitpicking.
Yeah, Liberator production also, I think, is going to work out pretty well. That is one of the more traditional answers to the Colossus as well, right?
Liberators?
Getting
So
up a lot of Liberators.
yeah, it's kind of a weird dynamic though. Until you get a certain number of, let's say, positional units, tanks or Liberators, Colossus actually beat, you know, they can push through basically, and support Stalkers sniping them down.
Okay, the army for DisK is making its way across the map. He's warping a few DTs, maybe to try and do some multi-prong harassment.
I don't know about the fourth, but he could misunderstand. I think that's the fourth. Could. I don't know if that's actually what's happening, but Future on 5 bases at DisK's 4. Future is getting that better economy, eventually a bigger bank.
Oh, snipes off one of the observers.
But not this one.
Oh, Missile Turret's about to finish up. Is it in range? No. Oh, no, that's sensor
I was
power.
like, where are you looking?
Yeah, never mind. Oh, snipes off one Liberator in exchange for a couple of those Stalkers. These players getting close to maxed out. Future would love to make that slow push over. Instead, he's going to settle for a attack force on the top right-hand side of the map, finding that fourth base. If he gets a snipe off over here, this could very well completely shut down the working economy of DisK.
Well, that's exactly what happens. Now, if DisK...
Dropping the main as well of DisK.
Oh, that's a good point. Gets to the High Templar before it can react. A couple of warp-ins are not going to work out. Actually, this many warp-ins might not work out. It is 3-3. It's not going to work out. So this is going to continue being a problem. And then DisK was like, okay, maybe he's on siege. No, not either. So he's just taking damage.
Yeah, and the drops that were over by that fourth base are now making their way over to the third base, potentially. The drop in the main base is actually supply block DisK, so he can't actually warp in any more units to help defend. Even the robotics bay could go down soon, but the third base is going to be the next target. Storm does come down, but the Marines are actually decently well spread. The medevac's get low.
Oh, wow.
A lot of them load back up, and now we end up seeing the big engagement. DisK has been forced into this.
Oh, the Liberators are totally out of position. They're all facing the wrong way.
Future.
They do start to help a little bit at the end with a blink 4, but all the Colossus are still alive, and he's down to nothing but Marines here. There are some tanks in the low ground getting at least one of the Colossus. But was this the fatal mistake? How far can DisK use this momentum? Is he going to be able to get the third CC?
Oh, Siege Tank's coming in from the south side. There's no more charge lots over here. Remember, DisK was heavily supply blocked, so he wasn't able to immediately reinforce this, but Orbital Command actually does go down. At the same time, Future trying to re-shut down that fourth base, doing more damage over by the third base, and actually forces a recall over there.
Yeah, nice snipe on the High Templar again. DisK has a decent gas bank, but that's usually still a very nice snipe. Gets a couple of probes, gets probes over here as well. I mean, this is a really great game by Future. DisK almost bringing it back, though, with a very convincing fight in the middle of the map, but is ultimately down in that economy. And still a little down in that army supply. Doesn't have those upgrades necessarily to fall back on. Looking maybe a little desperate, but...
This is probably his last push, right? I don't think he has the economy to reinforce after this. At least he's not supply blocked anymore, so he can maybe get a few last warp-ins. He does have a few minerals and gas left over, and a couple of DTs even that could maybe make a bit of a difference. I think his DTs are even in his army right now. Yeah, he's just rolling with the DTs with the Colossus and everything else.
He's starting to spread them out now. But I believe Future has defense. He has missile turrets that have been helping versus the Observers, and of course helping versus Dark Shrines. So DisK, you know, if he hadn't taken that fight, it was a good fight to take, so I'm not saying he shouldn't have done it. But he might have been able to just calmly play this out and retake that fourth base. Now, he has to retake his economy and rebuild his army. So it's certainly a tough position to be in, and he's got to hope for another just total blindside of positioning to help him here.
Disruptors are, I mean, they are the comeback unit. We were talking about this earlier on, so getting up 1 or 2 may not be the worst thing in the world, especially since Future's been doing a lot of really great multi-prong harassment, but sometimes he does kind of miss out on that main army fight as it begins. He misses the first couple of seconds. If you miss the first couple of seconds of the main fight and there are disruptors at play, that could just mean you lose the main fight very one-sidedly.
These 2 medevac drops have just been basically MVP.
Yep.
Like, without them, this is still probably an even game, maybe even DisK favored. And instead, they constantly take better trades than they're supposed to.
Focusing down the medevac, the Stalkers, I think they will still clean this up, maybe, but it definitely hurts a lot more than it should.
This drop is going to slaughter some probes. No, it shouldn't, but it does still allow Future to see he can siege up here and slowly encroach, basically, with Liberators.
Dark Templar being used to deny additional bases from being taken.
He's a little greedy. He went for orbitals as his extras, but
instead of the planetary, yeah. Okay, well at this point, Future is starting to cut off the ramp, so reinforcements can't really easily move through. The Stalkers running into the siege tank fire, just having a hard time moving through this choke point.
Man, I gotta say, the +3 armor is probably, it's like, it's a weird dynamic, right? Where tanks are like, well, I do a ton of damage anyways, who cares? But then the Marines are usually the ones that are really cut against those upgrades. So just not being able to get to that +3 armor from the earlier snipe is just like sick.
Losing another High Templar there to the Marines. Might lose another one. No, barely keeps it alive. 4 High Templars are all he has left, though.
Those probes are all lined up. Perfect shot. DisK is slowly dying here. Maybe a base trade would be the best option, but he's not in position. We even have, look at this. Look at this sensor tower.
Sensor tower is so ready. This is the sensor tower, the most aggressive sensor tower we've seen.
Yeah.
Well, Liberators aren't all covering these tanks from this angle, but I think there's just way too much here for Future.
That was a 6th round, though, from DisK. If he wasn't so far down in supply, kind of an upgrade.
GG.
Maybe.
Future breaks the 2-0 curse, and we finally get a game number 3.
Yeah.
Nearly the last game, one of the last games of our groups today.
I think he fixed the problem of the first game, and then he showed how to play that style in the second. That was actually, I don't want to say it's like a master class and be like, Future's the greatest Terran ever, but that was a really good execution of it with the drops that aren't, even if they died, they're not so super committed. The tank presence is still what's really the biggest deal, but then they actually did a lot of damage. And then, the tanks ended up really starting to find their groove, always be sieged up in time, and the Liberators, really that like cherry on top.
Yeah, when the Liberators are sieged up facing the right direction, they are extremely helpful in those fights.
Yes.
No, but exactly what you said. It's different than the usual Terran kind of like biomine or something that we've been seeing from a lot of the other Terran players today, where you are relying on keeping a lot of these bio units alive and just using those kind of numbers and the siege up of the Widow Mines in the right position at the right time to try and take a fight. In this one, it's you have the expendable units without having to worry, oh, no, I lost my medevac. Now I guess I might just get counterattacked and killed. No, you have the stable base.
Yes, that's like one of the nice things about this, just if you're playing as a Terran player, and you're like, I do these things, I try to be innovation, and then I lose my army, and then I die, and you're like, well, you could try going tanks. And even if you lose one army, if you got like 6 tanks back at home, they're still going to be like, I'm not going to take that fight, which happened in that game.
That's how it feels to be Protoss. I'm like, you know what? I still got my Colossus alive, or I still got my High Templars or something.
Yeah.
I guess still got a chance.
That's actually exactly what it's like. No.
No, this isn't even like a balancing. This is just like how
those emergency High Templar that stop the Marines from sitting on your natural base. Like that's,
oh my God! I mean, when I was like in low diamond and stuff, the number of times my High Templars I'd be dead, and my High Templar gets like 2 storms off, and I kill 40 Marines. I'm like, I'm back in this game, baby.
Heck yeah.
We're in it.
Yeah. So with 2 games, 1 loss, 1 win, but still 2 games. Future going for that tank style. Gotta figure he does it again.
I wouldn't hate it. And again, this goes back to the whole thing that Future was talking about, how he's doing a lot of prep work and stuff. And I guess this is some of that prep work he was doing. He had a group with 2 Protoss players, Probe and DisK. Didn't quite work out as well versus Probe, but like you said, kind of got a chance to change it up and fix any mistakes that he had going on in the first series. Moving to the second series, looking good.
Yeah, really cool game. Lots to talk about. In the final game of this losers match, loser of this game, just out, just gone.
That is tough.
Gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, stressful. Who's gonna take it? In the top left, as the red Terran, it is Infinity Gaming's Future.
And in the bottom right-hand corner of the map, we have the blue Protoss player. He is Systrom Gaming's DisK. Future's a good kid, though. He is extremely hardworking, and I think one of the best things that I always love hearing about, like the stories where people will say, yeah, I was playing with Future, and he's one of those guys that doesn't let you stop practicing with him until he figures out what he was working on. Like if he's struggling with a problem, he's not one of the guys that you beat him with a building. He's like, okay, I don't really feel like playing you anymore. And he's like, no, again. No, we're gonna do this until I get this, and then I'm gonna be better for it. So he's got a great attitude when it comes to improvement.
Well, I think it's really important is like, not to focus on him too much, but it's the truth. He got that popularity surge with Cheesadelphia, and then he was starting to stream. So, and his stream is just showcasing him like talking to his buddies, practicing like you're talking about. And it's not like I'm gonna burn out. Well, hopefully. It's not like I'm going to burn out because I'm forcing people to play 40 boring games against me.
Yeah.
It seems like it's fun, and that's, there's a lot to be said about, the practice that StarCraft players and esports players in general go for compared to like traditional sports that are like super studied, optimal amount of time versus like studying replays versus conditioning other ways, and like StarCraft players for the most part are just like, well, I practice 14 hours a day. I might kill myself, but I could also become the greatest player ever. So
yeah, and I like that exactly what you said. There's a lot of kind of that hanging out with friends, and just it makes it a much more much better experience and everything. I know that a lot of the NA guys, such as Future and Caleb Arrakis and a bunch of the other ones, like playing an arcade game called Hover, which is like, in my opinion, a better version of Zealot Hockey. Zealot Hockey is awesome. Hover is really cool.
I was gonna say Zealot Hockey. You better be careful. I think they still have a pretty strong.
No, Zealot Hockey is really awesome. It's more I'm speaking of how much I think Hover is a cool game, less so than me dissing on Zealot Hockey.
Gotcha.
I'm like, look, innovation's good. Cyril's really good. I'm not dissing innovation. Cyril's just really good.
So that's a good analogy for sure. You probably just saved your butt right there.
There you go.
This probe, one probe dead, this Reaper, and a decent scout.
Yep. I think he saw the robo.
Nah, he needs to get back in there.
Oh, barely missed it.
Yeah, and this is some, nice, clever anti-Reaper positioning, so it's possible he doesn't.
Well, Adept is now out, so it does make it pretty hard to move in, although the Reaper going for a suicide mission. One more hit. Bada bing, bada boom. Goes down.
Good job with the Adept.
There is a tech lab being built on the other side of the map. Is not going to be going on to the starport. Actually, no, a second tech lab starts up for the starport. And we got a good old 1-1-1 setup.
And wouldn't mind maybe just to help defend the front. So this could be into a, you know what? I'm just going to wait and see. I'm going to wait and see. We haven't seen too many just like straightforward tank Raven pushes with some SCVs pulled. We've been seeing the Banshees. We've been seeing, just 1-on-1 Would-A Mine drop, or the Hellions, actually.
What did the Adept die to?
This thing.
Yeah, there it is. Okay.
Bamboozled.
I was wondering about that.
That's a weird... Okay. So he makes one Would-A Mine, then a tech lab, then two Would-A Mines. Is he trying to fake out a Hallucinate Phoenix scout?
Yeah, exactly. That's the funny thing, is that there's no sentries here. That's why I was wondering. I was like, there's only one stalker out. Where's the sentry? Where's anything else?
This is so weird, because he's also getting a medevac, which doesn't require a tech lab.
I think this is actually the ultimate mind game for the Hallucinate Phoenix scout. And now he's just sitting there being like, God, are you kidding me? You didn't actually scout me? Really? I did all of this for you. This is all for you, DisK.
It could be that. I mean, like, to be clear, it's also just helpful to build them and have them ready to go, as opposed to trying to micro while also making sure your SimCity back at home. Like, these are just Terrans know what I'm on about. Like the Dragon Pros are like, what are you talking about? Like, why is it? You just transfer
you just build the pylons and you make the gateways.
Just transfer buildings on a tech labs. And you're like, well, I do that, and then I lift the barracks researching stick. So,
Didn't they make it so that it doesn't automatically cancel that? Or like, you have to cancel the upgrade first to lift?
Did they do that? They actually might have. But I also feel like there's a lot of quality of life updates.
So often that you noticed.
I mean, I don't do 2-on-1s anymore, and that's what I do.
Fair enough. Nice snipe off on the Observer, by the way. Future being able to get that is going to be just an extra bit annoying, shutting down some of the already kind of low scouting information from DisK.
Yeah, we got a Disruptor drop.
Ooh.
Yeah, yep. DisK did this
speed.
This time, didn't he?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, pretty sure. It's a lot of games today, though, so,
Actually, I don't remember this, actually.
I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah. But anyways,
I'll take your word for it. First Disruptor drop, moving on in. Future's army is on the north side of this natural, so he's going to be taking some damage. Ooh, that's a nice pickup. 5 workers already.
Yeah, I think that's the kind of expected results. We have an Observer seeing the Would-A Mine in case the Warp Prism was trying to think of going other ways. Actually, Future really did want to deny something, whether it was a Scout, a Warp Prism, a Blink up into the main base, something with his Would-A Mine presence. He never actually went and dropped to them.
Well, yeah, I think Warp Prism's still looking for an opportunity to move back in. Circumvents his way around the missile turret and gets in and kills a mule and 3 more workers. Not bad.
We are currently on, just 3 barracks. So nice standard 2-base push with bio, actually no tanks. So swapping styles here. Once you do that Marauder production, there's not going to be a second factory or anything like that.
But when you go for this kind of play that DisK went for, your things like the Twilight Council and stuff get really delayed. So you are relying on the Disruptor to buy a bit more time Future is doing his best to just move across the map, but remember, there's not going to be charge, there's not going to be blink stalkers or anything. It's just the Colossus and a handful of gateway units and a disruptor to try and buy a little bit of space.
That's a decent army, though, for sure.
Yeah, I think especially now that he's chipped away at some of the Marines and Marauders, but that drop in the main base might force a recall. Does he have energy in the main base?
That is a good question. He does
no,
not.
he does not.
But he's not quite being pulled out of position. Having eyes on that War Prism or the Medivacs at all was really important, and it works out not in anyone's favor, really. You know, Future was going to do something, and then it didn't happen. I mean, so okay, the game goes on. He didn't lose the Medivacs either. I'm getting a little worried about the 3rd CC timing, but it should be coming down on location.
What 3rd CC is Omega?
Well, if he wasn't going to go for a 3rd CC, we'd see more barracks.
Yeah. 4th and 5th barracks would normally be coming down. He's got more Liberators on the— Oh my god, he kills the Widow, or the War Prism with the Disruptor inside of it. And then he loads up the Widow Mines into the Medivacs. Is he going to try and drop this on the army?
Oh, I would love to see that.
There's so many stalkers,
it's so difficult to do. It is. Well, if they're not preempting it, right, then they're going to focus fire. They're not going to focus fire, and then they're going to focus fire the wrong Medivac.
But if you do it with all of the Medivacs, then you have nothing healing the bio, right?
It's true, yeah. I don't know. Like, the micro is really hard to do. He does pull the SCVs.
There's 2 Colossus. We'll see if this works out. All the Medivacs get boosted. He unloads the Widow Mines just on the low ground and decides, you know what? Defend your 3rd base all you want, buddy.
Oh, no!
Oh,
there's a Disruptor!
Okay, well, that hurts a little bit. Just a little bit.
Well, the Widow Mines finally got their shots, and the Medivacs are going to try and get out of there. The Stalkers look like they actually don't have Blink, so yeah, there you go. So they can get out of there.
Oh my god, that one Disruptor hit.
But he pulled the SCVs. And I feel like the SCVs actually didn't help at all in that fight.
No, the SCVs weren't even the things that were dying a lot of the time to that Disruptor hit or the Colossus. 11 SCVs now dead, but here we go. Liberator's going to help make this a little bit easier for Future. It's before Blink is finished up, or seconds before Blink, but the Liberators still get sniped off. The Colossus pick away through the Bioforce, and Future is going to tap out. GG DisK is going to keep his hopes alive.
Yeah, that was a little awkward. That was more than a little awkward.
It could have been so sick, but just the finessing of the engagement didn't go well.
It was, both the micro that would be required for the Widow Mines to actually do damage is already pretty risky. But then the decision to try and enter that natural is just without your Widow Mines, basically. When you do something like that, you're kind of hoping to have an observer, which he did for most of the Widow Mines.
I guess the hope there is that even if they do have the observer, they still have to spend time cleaning up the Widow Mines. They can't just chase you, so you use that time to get behind the wall, and then you use the wall against them.
No, yeah, and that's a good idea, except he pulled the SCVs. So these are like strategic tactics that you're using in a macro game to try and get an edge. But when you pull SCVs, you were not looking to
delay
get a temporary position and then evacuate. So
that's true.
Yeah, it's a little awkward, and that's unfortunate. I think Future showed a really great game for 2.
Yeah, and that is unfortunate for Future since he does get knocked out of WCS Winter. I know he was a guy that a lot of the North American scene had their eyes on as someone who could be one of the big American hopes of the future. But for now, it is not the future. We are in the present, and we are going to see DisK moving on to that decider match. The next match, by the way, is going to be Time versus Probe, Australia versus China. Let's see who comes out on top as the winner's match is coming on up.